Welcome, welcome.
Awkward moment of like, do we dance or do we not dance?
I think that's why they turn on the recording is so that we don't dance, but too bad. Give it another minute for folks to join. Yeah. Exactly. The robot never died. It never ended. Exactly. I feel like we're
like enough of.
I know we're like, we need to come up with a shorter theme song, I think.
Welcome. Good morning,
welcome,
good
everyone.
afternoon, good evening. I'm based in Amsterdam. For me, it's good evening. Welcome to our 9th episode of McKinsey Unpacked.
9. I can't agree. They've let us do 9 of these.
And some of you might be thinking, what, 9? I thought this was the first. No, don't worry. If you've missed the previous 8, in the registration email and the follow-up email you will get after this, we will have a link where you can watch all the other 8 episodes if you enjoyed today's session.
What a great binge idea, right, Marie? Perfect.
Exactly.
What could be better?
Highly recommend it. But so for those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. Thank you for making the time. And for those of you back from previous episodes, great to have you back. I am Marie, based in Amsterdam.
And I am Blair, based in Washington, D.C. And together, we co-lead McKinsey's global recruiting. We call it talent attraction. We're excited to have you here today. This is a little dream we dreamed up last year in an attempt to give people a little bit of an insider's view to what we would say is the real McKinsey. Both Marie and I have been in recruiting now for about 20 years each. Too long. Some might say too long. It's probably true. And one of the things that's amazing to us is how often I feel like McKinsey is misunderstood in the marketplace. So we always hear things from candidates that think, gosh, that is so different than my own experience here. So we started the Unpacked series as a way to invite you in a little bit and introduce you to friends and colleagues of ours at the firm who are doing interesting things and just give you more of an insider's informal, hopefully fun, interesting perspective on what this place is like. So again, it's your backstage pass, and we're excited that you're here.
Yeah, today is extra special, I think, because we have a really awesome guest, and with today's episode, we want to really bring you behind the scenes to the people who work here and the people who make our place so special, from the most senior to some of our more junior colleagues. Which make up the heart and soul of our firm and contribute so much to our culture and who shape our culture so much. And so I am super excited about today's episode. And like previous episodes, we are McKinsey, so we like things in 3. So our episode today also again has the normal 3 parts that we have in each of the episodes. We start with today's map, what's on our mind. Every good trip and travel needs a direction. Then the main section where we will introduce our guests is the unpacked part. And of course, as I said, consultants like to travel. So it's both about unpacking what McKinsey is really like, but then, the little link to unpacking suitcases and other equipments as you go on travel. And then the last one, no good trip is ever complete without a good snack. So we have a bit of a snack for the road, a tip at the end to take away for you and hopefully be helpful.
Yes, and I know Marie, travel and packing and unpacking and snacks are particularly on your mind. Marie just got back from a 2.5-week holiday with her young children, which anybody who has children or has been a child, which I think would include all of us, knows that traveling with children can be rewarding and, you know, a little scary all at once. So Marie, what's on your mind today? What's the roadmap for you as you are coming
Yeah,
back to terra firma after your wonderful
I
holiday?
know. And it was really an amazing trip. We took our children. So we have twin girls who are 10 and a son who actually turned 8 today. So I
Oh,
just brought him to bed. He didn't want to go to bed. We just celebrated his 8th birthday today. And we did a family vacation to Asia, which was a first for the children. So it just reminded me a bit that it gave me a lot of opportunity to observe them and how they see the world. And they have so much curiosity and joy in what they do. And that was both with this adventure traveling in Asia, but then also today's birthday, right? The curiosity and joy of celebrating and having, you know, the gifts unwrapped already before 7 a.m. because you can't wait. And I was reflecting that children just have that so naturally, and we lose that
yeah.
sometimes a little bit as adults. But I do feel that is part of what makes McKinsey so special to me, that we do have a lot of, like all of our colleagues, they do have and keep that natural curiosity of really wanting to dig in, wanting to understand, wanting to make a
Yes.
difference. But I was reflecting that we can't lose that, or we have to really fight for keeping it, especially in today's world where both there's so much change coming our way. So keeping the joy and the levity is really important. But then also, if you think about AI and the opportunities that that gives, but then also maybe some of the challenges, you need to stay curious, you need to continue to challenge and ask, you know, the why behind what, you know, an agent or something from generative AI is spitting out. So I was just reflecting a lot on curiosity and joy in the past 2.5 weeks, but then also especially today. So I was thinking, what are some of the things the kids do that I could incorporate in my day to day around, like thinking about things as if they're a
I
clean
love that.
sheet and you look at it for the first time and just be more
I love
silly,
that.
which I know resonates very well with you, the fun and the
Are you
silliness.
calling me silly, Marie? Well, she is, and I am. But I love that, and I think that's something uh, we don't talk. It's a word that you don't hear very much, whether you're looking at career sites or you're talking to
No,
people about jobs. Joy, joy,
and
laughter,
levity. Yeah.
fun, curiosity. That is something I think that we have found to be a common thread throughout our time at McKinsey, which has had its challenging moments as well. But at the end of the day, if it isn't ultimately pretty interesting and pretty fun, you know, it makes it hard to want to go through some of the difficult things. So I think it's a perfect reflection for our topic today. And I agree. I want us to stop talking because I'm so excited to welcome our guests. But um, to me, we have someone joining us today who embodies sort of what curiosity and joy means in the professional setting, and I hope can help share with you a little bit of how this firm and the kinds of roles we offer give you a real platform for curiosity and joy, which again might not be words you would have thought about when you thought about any professional setting before, and especially the McKinsey professional setting. So we have joining us today, drum roll please, our dear friend Leti. Leti is a senior business analyst who joined us in October of 2022. So what is business analyst? Shorthand we call is BA. First thing you need to know about BAs is they actually run the entire firm. They are bar none the smartest and most important people at our firm. Typically, they are folks who join us out of their university or undergraduate or have like fewer than 4 years of
Master degree depends
experience. Yeah,
on where you're based.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's someone early in their professional career. It is one of the most rewarding and exciting and interesting roles of the firm. Leti, I think, has taken that to heart. So I was going to share a little bit of her journey. She's got a really interesting background. She's originally from Madrid in Spain, uh, found her way to the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA, all the way on the west coast of the US, then bounced down to the east coast of the US, all the way down in southern Florida to Miami, where she is based today. From a professional standpoint, for the first couple years of her BA, again, business analyst role, Leti hopped around and did a bunch of client work around a bunch of different areas, including insurance work and consumer, travel. energy, people and organizational practices. So really had what we would call a random walk, and then transition in her third year to an incredibly cool opportunity to be one of the chiefs of staff for essentially what we would call the CEO of our McKinsey North America practice, Eric Kutcher, who actually is a friend of recruiting and has been a past guest. So Leti, it'll be fun to compete with who
gets the most views.
Exactly. Is
Exactly.
it you or is it Eric? My money is on you in case Eric is watching. But again, she's also incredibly active in her local office in Miami. She does a ton around recruiting. She's also leads up our magic and connectivity team. So thinking about the fabric of fun and how important that is, not just to our everyday enjoyment of our jobs, but frankly, to our ability to do our jobs and serve our clients well and run our firm well. It is an integral part of that. And then last but not least, she's a world famous author. I would
Exactly.
say she's a world famous author
Within
in
the McKinsey
world of
walls.
McKinsey. Yeah, but like still world famous in our world. We have an internal news channel called McKinsey News, very creatively named, and they have fascinating articles. And we came across one called How to Be a Baller BA. And we thought we need to get to know that gal. And sure enough, Leti was the author of it. So she is here today to share more about her story. And we hope in doing so, really open your eyes to the curiosity and fun that underpins so much of what we do. So Leti, without further ado.
Yay, drum roll. Leti, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. So great to be here. Thanks so much, Blair, Marie, for the opportunity. I've been following McKinsey Unpacked, so for me to get the invitation to be here is a true honor. Like, I got to see Eric live. Now I get to be here. It took him
I
20
know, no
years.
pressure,
to get
right?
the phone call. It took me
You
two and
wanted
a
to
half.
say beat him. No.
2.5 years. So that's a record.
That's right. Well, we are so thrilled to have
But I
you.
really, I want to hear more about the Baller BA article.
Yeah.
I joined as a business analyst 20, how many years ago? 22 years
22
ago.
many.
And
22 many.
I probably wish I would have had all these tips. But before we dive into that, you brought us a little glimpse of what your life is like in your beautiful Miami office. So maybe we start with that, if it will work out.
A video? Okay.
Yes, let's start the video.
I like to start my Friday mornings by taking a walk around Brickell Key. It amazes me every day that this is my backyard. And after my walk at around 8:50, I make my way to the office, which is located in Brickell City Center. It's Friday, so I got my glasses on and I'm ready to go. And we're located on the 10th floor, so I just quickly buzz myself in with my card and make my way up. Good morning, Alex. My first call was at 9 a.m. today, so I set up at my usual spot, which is always facing the Brickell Bay.
Now we're going to the kitchen for a quick mid-morning snack. Oh, these are new.
Normally, I am more of a water girl, but today I was feeling a LaCroix, so I got myself one and a Coke for Ananya. At 12 p.m., lunch was served. Dee ordered sushi for the entire office. It looked and tasted amazing. Once a month, the Miami office hosts a Super Friday, in which the whole office gets together to discuss key updates related to our client work, community relations, and upcoming events as part of our town hall. This week, Fareed gave an update on the work him and his team have been doing for the Miami Tech Hub. And whenever I get the chance, I like to take a quick power walk around Brickell City Center to stretch my legs and get some fresh air. But I made it back in time for my team problem solving, or PS session, where we discussed how we wanted to set up one of the pages for our SteerCo meeting for the following week. Rachel had a late call on Friday, so I just stopped by her room to say bye, and then headed to the cafe for the monthly happy hour. There's always food, snacks, and drinks. It's a phenomenal way to end the work week.
Oh, nice.
I think everybody will want to apply to
Miami, I think, is going to see a spike in applications.
I
Which
cannot wait.
rightfully so. That sushi alone would be worth it. I love it.
I've not been to that office. I will definitely add it to my list. It looks lovely. And I don't know if you produced that video yourself, Letty, but then that would be pretty impressive to add to your list of achievements. And you're
That's
also
right.
a video
Videographer.
producer.
If consulting doesn't
Vlogger.
work out, I can be a professional TikToker. That'll be my.
Amazing.
Amazing.
All right.
Multiple skills.
So what are you doing at McKinsey? I mean, that's my first question. How did you end up here? What was your journey to McKinsey and into your role?
Yeah, so as Blair mentioned, I spent a few years on the West Coast. I was there for high school, so it was a pretty easy transition to go to UCLA. I'm very fortunate that my parents were willing to let me stay on the West Coast and for them to move back to Spain. And so I majored in business economics and I minored in accounting. And so for me, minoring in accounting very much pigeonholed me into kind of that world. And I think for a lot of the folks that are on the call, like you might be experiencing something similar where you only have exposure to one thing and you're trying to branch out. And after doing my summer internships for 2 years at PwC, I realized this isn't it. Like it's not brain stimulating. I'm bored. I'm not getting energy out of this. And to our point earlier on like joy and happiness, like I just wasn't feeling that way. And so a few friends of mine who had interned at UA Parthenon said, Letty, I think you'd like this. Like this seems like your groove. And so I gave it a shot and I was like, let's just recruit. Let me just block off 2 months in the summer, do my case consulting and prep. And that's exactly what I did. When it came to think about McKinsey, right, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to apply to some awesome companies. That was on my list. And I want to bring up the point on office preferences because I know that that's a lot of the questions that our candidates get. My biggest tip is where do you want to spend your weekends? Put that as your number one office.
Oh, interesting.
And I say that choosing Miami and I'd never visited before. So my friend said, you like speaking Spanish, you like Spanish music, and you don't own a winter coat. Miami seems like the way to go. I think this is like the blazer that I'm wearing is probably the extent of winter clothes that I own.
That is the advantage of being based in the US, right? In Europe or Asia, it doesn't sadly work quite like that.
Oh, wait a minute. I started 1,000 years ago in the Chicago office, and let me tell you, I owned winter coats. So it's not every US office, but yes.
No, I mean in terms of also choosing your location, right?
Got it.
Other countries, you need to have local language link or you need to have some sort of an experience link to a location. But given obviously US is such a huge country with so many office choices, indeed your flexibility is higher to just choose where you want to go within the US if you have some background or experience in the US.
Exactly. Well, thankfully, the doors opened in South Florida, and so I moved here in October 2022, and have been here ever since. And that's what kind of brought me here. What's made me stay is very cliche, and I feel like Eric and everyone has probably said this, but it's the people that I've met. I think more so in my last year, Blair being one of them, and then also the fact that McKinsey's the best classroom. Like 4 years of undergrad, high school, I'm going to go to business school, but I think the best classroom is McKinsey, and there's not a day that goes by that I actually don't learn from the people around me. I'm humbled to be sometimes the dumbest person in the room, but that is only just an opportunity for me to learn from them and just say, let's do it.
And
I want to step
I
up.
can totally relate to that. And it's funny that, as a business analyst, you say that me as an old lady in the firm after 22 years, I say the same, right? The reason why I've stayed for so many years, it's because A, the people, and B, it has never gotten boring to this day where I feel like I'm not learning anymore, I'm not growing. So it's funny that I do think that distills very well what most people really appreciate about working here.
I agree. And it's really, and those are two things I would argue that are very hard to really understand and appreciate from the outside, which is always our challenge in recruiting and part of why we invite friends like Leti to share her experience to give you guys that insight. And Leti, it's one of the reasons I think the business analyst, the BA role is one of the coolest roles at the firm.
Yeah.
So I agree with Marie. Learning is just built into continual learning is in every role at every tenure. So nobody is sort of dialing it in and doing whatever they're comfortable with. We're always growing. But I think the BA role is really designed to give you that broad look across different sectors, industries, functions. It's hard to think about a job coming, especially right out of university or early in your career, that gives you that sort of vantage point to see so many different things. And so, for you, Leti, I know you did sort of the traditional first couple years of client service work, and then in your third year had this really neat opportunity to focus really more on internal and really understanding how the leadership of the firm works and supporting, again, our North American managing partner, Eric. What's that been like? What, has that felt like? Did it feel like a huge shift from your client facing work to an internal role? What has been fun about that? What's been challenging about that for you?
Awesome. Well, as I've said, and as I tell everyone that asks me how the past few months have been, I think they've been the absolute best. They've been a highlight. I really enjoyed, serving different clients, specifically like in insurance and the people organization performance practices. And so getting to bring those skills that I learned on the job to then help McKinsey North America is just a privilege, right? I get to say that my client is North America and that I can work alongside Eric Kutcher. We've got David Harris, Liam Simons, just an awesome team. And really what surprised me is the degree of involvement from all of our leadership, right? It's not just Eric at the helm. We've got a North America opco. And so I get a seat at the table with some of the most incredible leaders, and I'm a thought partner. They will pause and say, Leti, what are your thoughts? And they want to hear the BA perspective, which is incredible, right? When we think about Eric Kutcher, who's been at the firm for 27 years, or Rebecca Coggins, who leads consumer globally, or Yael Taku, who leads now our Northeast region, they are willing to hear from me. Like Leti, I think the Leti of 2022 would have never believed that this opportunity, one, even existed, and two, this is what it would look like. And so
I love that, Leti. I think that's just so important to pause on because we talk a lot in recruiting about having a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And I think people don't always understand what that really means. But I love sort of how you brought that to life, which is I'm not just there as the BA kind of taking the notes or running the agenda. You're actually part of the problem solving discussion with these senior leaders at the firm, helping to shape it based not just on your smart thoughts as Leti, but your perspective as a BA in particular. And did you find that same kind of thing?
But it's also, just to add to that, right? It's even part of our values. We've been, as a firm, we've been around for almost 100 years. We're celebrating our 100-year anniversary next year, which I guess is a big milestone for any organization. And part of the thing that has been really enduring over decades are our values. And one of our core values, and one of the ones that I like the most, is the obligation to engage in dissent. So it's both, right, Leti? You have a seat at the table. People listen to you, but you even it even goes further, right? You have an obligation to give your opinion and to share your thoughts in a conversation where you have where you're part of.
absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
How was it different for you on this sort of seat at the table idea, serving clients versus working with North America leadership? Was it a different feel, or do you feel like it's kind of the same model, whether you're serving clients or working on internal projects?
I would probably say that I feel a little less intimidated, right? As a 22-year-old, 23-year-old at the time when you're presenting to a CFO, right? It's a little hard to build conviction, and that's why you've got your manager and the partner who can support kind of the work that you've done. But because of McKinsey, we all speak the same language. We just understand each other. We have similar experiences of, the BA to senior partner. Like, what it's like to feel, like the youngest person in the room. And so for me, it was a little less intimidating, and I just felt so welcomed by the group. And I think I'm also the type of person that raises my hand, right? Like, I don't need to be called on. I will share my perspective and know that it'll be welcome, right? And so I think McKinsey does a great job to say, we want to hear your voice.
I love that. And I think we talk about that too, this whole idea of apprenticeship, which again is a word that is so meaningful for us internally. And I think people are like, I know what it means, but what does it actually feel like?
What does it feel
I think we could all share examples of, for Marie and me, a lot longer ago than your examples, but where you had to do something you did not know how to do, or you were certainly not comfortable doing in a client setting. And that is where it's built into our model that you have people who have gone before you teach you. And they literally say, hey, Leti, you're going to go present to the CFO. Let's run through it. How are you thinking about this? And they'll stop you and say, hey, that was a great way to position that, but I think you need to get to that point much faster. Don't, this person they know the background already, jump to this point. And you literally have someone helping to build that muscle for you, which I would argue, Leti, is probably why it has been so comfortable for you on sort of the latest rotation to jump in there with really senior people and say, here's my opinion.
Right. No, exactly. And I always like to say that at McKinsey, it's a work hard, play hard environment, but it's a work hard together, play hard together. And so Blair, to
I
nail down
like that.
the point,
That's a
like,
great
I love
ad.
that too.
we're not here alone. It's not me going off to present or to, change North America's operating model or strategy. It's we're doing it as a team.
I
And
love
so
that.
we go through the hard stuff together, and there's an immense reward, and we have a ton of fun and joy that comes out of it.
So true, so true. So we talked a lot about people already, and I mean, arguably, whenever you ask one of our colleagues who leaves and joins our amazing alumni network, if you ask them what they miss about McKinsey the most, I don't have any real stats about it, but I think my hypothesis is 99% will say it's the people, or maybe even 100%. So how did you find your people? How did you build your network? How does it work for somebody joining as a business analyst, joining at the beginning of their career? How has that worked for you?
How does it work? I think it's like, how did it work for me? And that is going to very much lead into like the tips and tricks as to how you actually should do it. Because I think I did it in a very organic way where I showed up in the office and really was proactive about getting to know the different people. I didn't know anyone in Florida, so I didn't know anyone at McKinsey Miami. And I like to joke that I network more now at the firm than I did to even come to the firm.
That's fun.
Right? I didn't talk to anyone from McKinsey Miami, but now I run McKinsey Miami. So it's like a circle of life. So how I went about building my network was showing up to different events that then I ended up leading. And what's ironic is that my first engagement, the ED, engagement director, who was the partner on the study, actually beat me in our office tennis tournament. And at the time, I was so mad.
That's
And I
a
was
good
like,
start.
like, and then the following week, he was like, I actually have an engagement kicking off in Chicago. Would love for you to join the team. Right. And then from there, the other analyst, the other BA, put in a good word with a different EM. And from there, kind of just the network started building. Right. I always like to say, if you do a good job, like that's what you got to focus on. Do the job right. And then the rest will kind of trail. But more importantly is make sure that those interactions, right, those relationships are organic, that you're not just pinging an EM or an associate partner or a partner when you need staffing. Actually, message them, carve out the time to show up in the office and knock on their door, talk to them. And that's how I would say I've built my network, right? We have a professional development manager who's kind of shown me different opportunities, but I believe I've done a pretty good job at just keeping in touch with the people, and they've come knocking on my doors with those opportunities.
Right.
And I think one thing you said is so important. It's just about showing up, not just waiting for people to come to you, right? But showing up, making a difference, participating, and reaching out to people, not just in the moments when you need something from them, but just also coming back to the point around curiosity, being curious about people, what they're doing, what they're working on, what they're energized by, that's the start.
And I think that translates a lot to the recruiting process. We get so many questions about how much do I have to network when I'm recruiting? Is it all, am I judged on how many people I've met and can say they know my name? And the answer is always absolutely not. It is not a quantity game. It is a quality game. It is about make genuine connections with people, not because we need to know how many people we've connected with, but because it will help you get to know who we are. And so I love that push, Leti, that you sort of get out what you put in. And I think we all know those people that are sort of checking the box when they network with you, and you can feel it. It just, you don't have a real connection. There's not a real incentive. So I really love that advice, whether it's recruiting, whether it's at the firms you eventually join throughout your professional career. Networking should be an act of friendship and connection, not a transactional something to get you ahead.
And organic. And just think about the occasions and the places where you meet people, and that's where you start.
Like
from.
on the tennis court.
Exactly. It could be on the golf course. I don't play golf, but
That's right.
So
I would not get hired if I played golf with someone. I can tell you that with certainty. So yes. Leti, we mentioned this baller BA, which again,
Yes, I want to hear more about that.
So much buzz, and I think part of the reason that people love it is everybody loves a good hack, right? Everybody loves figuring out how to take something hard and make it a little bit easier or a little bit more fun. And so I think that was part of what was so cool of the many things about the article that you wrote is sort of ways to approach what are often really hard, challenging tasks, but do them a little easier, do it with a little bit more curiosity and joy. And again, what you put in is what you get out. It can change things. So maybe you could give this group, some of your hacks that you shared in your article around, again, not just whether you come to McKinsey and are a business analyst with us, or frankly, any role. What are some of your hacks for how to bring joy to whatever you do?
Absolutely. So I'm going to deviate a little bit from the consulting 3, and I do have 4 tips I want to share.
No, fine, we'll
Oh.
allow it.
Sorry.
Just
I'm not so sure. We'll mute your
Hey,
microphone
whoa,
after the
whoa, whoa.
third.
This group
Okay.
deserves more than just 3.
All right.
But we can pick
Fine.
apart and digest all that. So to start off, and I think we've been talking about this, it's take on the right mindset, right? If you are on this webinar, you're watching this now or later, you know that McKinsey is a place where you're going to work really hard, but you're going to have a blast doing it, and you're going to learn like nowhere else. The learning curve is exponential. And I can say this because I have a twin brother, so I have a really good baseline.
I've met that twin brother.
Yeah,
I've
Blair's
met
not
that
his twin brother. So, and I think Blair can agree.
Hey, Javi, he's
I
probably
have
watching
twins,
right now.
Leti.
Rooting you on.
I have twin girls, so I need to get, a good scoop into how it is to be a twin.
How to be a baller twin.
How to be a baller
That
twin.
can be your next article.
That'll be part 2. So it's having the right mindset and saying, I'm here to learn and I cannot wait to do this. Having that smile, on your face. It doesn't need to be 24 hours a day because I've had my lows. You will have your highs. Like McKinsey's a roller coaster, but having the right mindset of I'm here for a reason. It's for the people, for the learning, for the growth. That's the first point.
I love it.
No one can argue that.
Mindset is more
So
than half the
important.
battle on anything you're facing. I totally
I
agree.
agree.
Yeah. The second I would be, and this is right when we think about being on a client engagement and a study, it's you want to actually understand who you're serving, who your client is, and the actual scope of the project. A lot of analysts or associates, they come in on day one and they're a little lost, which is fair, right? If you're new to the firm, you don't know what's going on. But there's these small little things that you can do to make sure you do it right? Or you're a little less clueless than maybe you would be. And so by that I mean, what's the client that you're serving? Who's the CEO, CFO? Who's like, who are the people that matter, right? When it comes to making big decisions at the client, and why have they brought you in, right? What's on the news? What I like to do is I set up like Google Alerts. So whenever a
Love
client of
that.
mine has a headline, like I know. So when I'm sitting with them in their client site in the team room, we can have that dialogue, and you're always up to speed and sometimes 3 steps ahead, which is always good. You want to be 3 steps ahead of the client, your partner, the manager, and so forth. And then
I'm jealous. I always feel
I-
like it's a success to not be more than 1 step behind.
I agree. And I wish I could go back and tell my own 20-something self. That is a great tip. I think, particularly when you start out in your career, rightfully so, you're so worried about the immediate thing on your plate. How do I learn how to build an Excel model? How do I figure out how to write this document in a way that's going to, really resonate with the team? Whatever it is, you're so worried about that. I think it's really hard to think about the bigger picture. I love that advice, which is start, because by the way, all the senior leaders you're serving, working with, et cetera, that's the space they're living in. So I really love that point. Practice, build that muscle from day one of taking whatever small, important thing you're working on, put it in the big picture. I think that's totally gold. Sorry, just want to underscore.
no, take the Eric Kutcher mindset, right? Like put yourself in.
What is the Eric Kutcher
Don't make his
mindset?
ego grow, Letty.
Right.
Come on.
No, but like I'm the BA, I'm in the weeds, I'm running the Excel and making the pages. Take a step back and say, what would Eric Kutcher think, right?
No, that's a really interesting thought. You're right. You could insert that for anyone. What would the senior person on my team think? What would the boss, my boss's boss think about this? That's a really great habit to build. I just love that point. Good one.
Great.
I would say then my third tip, and this ties to both being on a study, but also case interview prep, right? So for when you think about case interviews, so listen to this. You want to actually set up the problem correctly, right? Many times I've seen BAs, and I've also fallen in this trap. I spend a day just churning on an analysis or pages without really understanding the why behind it. And so you want to start by defining the problem. And just think about the case interview, right? What's the problem statement? Why is it that, let's say, Burger King is experiencing declining revenues? Like, what are we actually solving, and why did the client bring McKinsey in? The second is, right, what do you want the output to look like, and what is it that you're going to bring to the client, right? Based on that, you'll be able to determine what model you need to run, what are the different formulas and functions, and then what the output, right? And by output at McKinsey, I say our pages are our currency. And so what are the
Pages, meaning PowerPoint pages.
PowerPoint
Again, this,
pages.
like,
Yes, not Word
that is
documents.
that is our language that we speak in, is we take everything that looks like this and we turn it like this, right?
There we
Okay.
go. Exactly. And so once you know what that needs to look like, you go into step 3, which is finding the sources of data. Is that going to be like a client request, which can sometimes be painful because our data's ugly? Is it conducting expert interview calls and you're just calling on the phone to try and understand that market? Or do you go into McKinsey's incredible database where we have a ton of documents and resources and kind of put those facts, right, and things together on a page? And then the last, it's like very simple, but everyone forgets about the so what. Like, what's the takeaway? Like, why is
Yes.
Leti even here today talking to everyone here? But the why on the right hand side or wherever, or on the lead at the top of the page, you have to communicate the why it's important and why you want the client to know, right? It might be an insight on, hey, Burger King is experiencing declining revenues. Here are the 3 key reasons, and let's go tackle them, right? Let's be impact partners together and make a change.
So wise. How did you distill that into this great wisdom that actually made it to McKinsey News? And I mean, the bar is pretty high to make it to McKinsey News. I mean, people outside might not fully understand. It's a big deal to be featured there. So how did that happen?
I would say over time, and also the apprenticeship that I received from especially my EMs, these are the people that I work the closest with. And
And by the way, sorry, EMs, something that is
Yes.
part of our culture that we do
That's right.
love is abbreviations of
We
everything.
love acronyms. We
So
love-
EMs are engagement managers. So these are the project leaders that basically run the individual projects.
yeah, so I would, I have a set of micro habits, which includes, right, just aligning on the output and running the model and doing all these things. And they would kind of reinforce, like, I like that behavior. That's good, right? And then passing that along to other BAs and seeing that same reinforcement meant, okay, clearly something's off because from day one, why are all BAs doing this? And so what became the article, there was kind of a step in between, which was running a set of how to be a baller BA workshops in North America. So it was kind of ground up. I emailed our PD professional development colleagues and said, I need you to find me the most baller BAs in your offices, or 27 locations in North America. And we've also hosted in Lisbon, London, and Madrid. So it had
cool. Take it on the road.
Again, it's such an amazing example of how people just are amazing at our firm. They want to make a difference. They see something. They are enthusiastic, active. A lot of the amazing things actually start ground up, like you describe. And look at that, right? That you even did it then in other regions. It's so cool.
Exactly. It's just finding the right people and saying, here's the material. I created a nice 30-page document, more pages, and said, here's
That's what a
we gotta
baller
do.
BA does, creating beautiful pages.
That's right.
And here's, like, host an 1.5-hour session with your new BAs in your office. Make it organic, connect, right? Show up in person, no Zoom. I know we're on Zoom right now, but I'm very adamant about being in the office.
Yes.
And then North America is going to give you a little bit of budget and go have a nice dinner, right? And keep on connecting. So there was that added perk. And then from that, kind of the summary was, let's not let this die. And let's actually share this with the rest of, I guess it ended up being global, right? On McKinsey.
I love that. And it's true. There we talk a lot about you will grow here faster than anywhere. And I think Letty's given some examples of why, in terms of the breadth of the work that you do, the opportunities that are open to you. But a lot of it is our intensive focus on learning and apprenticeship. But this is such a great example. We have tons of formal training that we do, but we do on the ground training, the classic pull you aside. You mentioned it, Letty, the like, hey, that sounded great, or I'd tweak that, I wouldn't do that. And then we have our amazing colleagues who have so much entrepreneurship and drive to share their gifts with others. That's one of the things I love. A friend and colleague of mine in the learning team pulled together a training for senior internal leaders at the firm, because we just felt like we were hearing a bunch of our friends saying, I really wish I knew more about how to manage X, influencing really tough stakeholders. How do we think about that? And so no one's going to ask us to do something. Frankly, half the time here, you do something and sort of hope you're not going to get yelled at for it, right? You're certainly not asking permission, but 9 times out of 10, you sort of bring that to someone else and they're like, that's a great idea. Let's go. Let's make it bigger. Let's figure out how we can get funding, which I love.
And that's also part of the culture, right? The flexibility and freedom that
Very
you
much
get.
so.
If you have a great idea, you have the energy to do it, yeah, go do it.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah,
Letty,
McKinsey's super
do you
supportive.
do you find time to sleep? I'm just curious. Seems like you got a lot going on, but seriously, how like some of your hacks, because I know another part of the hacks that people loved were you have some hacks for just how to make it a little bit more efficient. Because, you know, we are a passion-led place. I always tell people the hard part isn't finding things to do that you're interested in. The really hard part is saying no to some things so that you can actually do well on the things you say yes to. How do you balance it all, Letty? What are some of the hacks you have for how to make it manageable?
I don't sleep. That's it. No. Kidding.
Okay, perfect. Great. Great
No.
recruiting message. Thanks, Letty.
Thanks, you guys. No. I don't have bags.
That's
then.
right,
At least I
that's
don't
right.
think. So a few hacks, right? How I've made this place sustainable is, putting my energy, right, when I think about side of the desk activities that I am passionate about. And the two are our Miami Office Magic, our connectivity team, and then recruiting. Obviously, client comes first. It's always client, firm, and then it's myself. And just knowing in what pockets, right, I need to focus more of that energy towards. The way that I make it work for myself is making sure I have that 30 minutes to an hour in the morning of just reset, going on my nice walk, as you guys saw in the video. I did that this morning. So this isn't fake, like this is real Letty in the flesh. That's what I do. And things that have helped me as a BA really stay organized and make sure that I'm delivering is keeping my inbox very, very clean. My inbox is a proxy for my to-do list, even though I have a separate to-do list. But make sure
You're
I
mine. Yes, that's
everything.
me. That's what I'm trying to do too.
That is not me, so I need to come intern, frankly, with both of you immediately. But yes, I agree. It is a hack.
And then also work planning. People underestimate how important it is. I take between 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes more on Sundays. Maybe it's Saturdays if I'm up for it, to just, what does my next week look like? What are the key meetings? Is there anything that I'm missing? And I don't mind honestly putting in an hour or two over the weekend if I know it's going to make me successful during the week, right? We say that McKinsey can be a little more than a job, a little less than a life. I've fully embraced that. And I don't think it's not a 9 to 5 job. It's not a 9 to 9. There's no set hours. And so I happily put in the time over the weekend to just set myself up for success, right? And flag to people like, hey, we need this,
I love
we need
that.
And emails will be flying between me and my team over the weekend, but it just makes us more efficient and make sure that, North America runs smoothly.
And just to point on that, Letty, what is also great about this place is there is no one model.
No,
You sort of get
exactly.
to set your norms, your personal norms, but then of course
And what works for you, right?
Exactly. And so, Marie and I, for example, will say, hey, evening time between, let's call it 6:30 p.m. and 8 is when we're like trying to feed our people, wash uniforms, do all the mom things. And it's easier for me to do a phone call at 9 o'clock at night, but it's really hard for me to do one at 6:30 at night. Ditto in the morning. 7 a.m. is like DEFCON 4 if I'm home and not traveling. It's easier for me to do a call even earlier than that. So I think we set norms around when, but I love your point overall, which is you got to carve out a little space because your calendar will never give it to you. It will always be full. You have to carve out a little bit of space to just take a beat and evaluate what your priorities are and make sure where you're actually spending your time is aligned with what not only you're excited about, but what you need to deliver. I think that's great advice.
Yeah. And for the folks that want to come to McKinsey, you should do the same when it comes to your case interviews. Like carve out the time to do both your case interview prep, but also the PI, which is the behavioral interview prep, right? Carve out the time. I know you might be working full time or you're going through final exams, but carve out the time because it'll be worth it, right? Do that work planning and your schedule for when you're going to case prep with your buddies and so forth. And that way, by the time August, September roll around, you're ready to go.
Music to my ears.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And Letty, we're going to invite you back for sure because we hosted a session. If you want to look in the archives, as Marie mentioned, we hosted a session with one of our leaders at the firm who thinks about our interview process. So she led a really interesting prep session. I think Letty, based on your current BA status, and then it'd be fun for you to share what your next plan is. It'd be fun to have you come back on the other side, and maybe we could do another interview prep session with you.
I love that.
What are you doing next?
What am I
Yeah,
doing
what's
next?
next? You've done the
What's
client
next?
stuff, you've done the internal chief of staff. What's coming next?
I am headed to business school. So I'm actually going up north. We'll buy a coat. TBD which one.
Good idea.
Open to recommendations.
Yes.
But I'm going to Harvard Business School in the fall. So my last day at the firm will be in July.
Let's not talk about that. La 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 la.
Well, last day for, a certain
Exactly.
moment.
I'm going to come back for my internship and then I'll be an associate. TBD if it's Boston or Miami. I say Miami, but Jeff Rudnicki, who's the Boston office managing partner, is like pounding the table.
Gonna get you.
Yeah.
Just see how the winter goes, Letty. That's the only thing I'm gonna say.
I know.
We'll just
And
talk
maybe come back to
after
Europe, come back to
December in
Spain.
Massachusetts. Congratulations, though. That is so
Thank you.
exciting, which is
That is super
so
exciting.
great, and love that we have had the chance to work with you and become friends with you, Letty, and can't wait to stay connected and see how you light the world on fire at HBS also. I don't want to leave because I love talking to my friends. It's like one of my favorite things I do, but I feel we have to respect people's time. And so we want to wrap up with snack for the
Snack for the road.
And you've given, by the way, some pretty
Tons.
awesome tips
Yes.
thus far, but any sort of parting pieces of advice, Letty, for, again, folks who, if you could rewind, were in maybe your shoes a few years ago or thinking about switching careers and trying to figure out what it's all about. Some advice for everybody.
Yeah, so two things. One more philosophical, and then the second would be very practical.
Okay.
The philosophical
I like that.
piece. I know, Blair, you already, hit on this point, but take on the mindset of what can you do for the firm, for McKinsey or whatever company, versus what can the company do for you.
I love that.
Really, and it's in the giving mindset because whatever you give, you're going to get a crazy multiple back. And so take that lens into your day-to-day too, right? Into your friendships,
that.
relationships,
I love
into
that.
the job that you're in.
I
And
love
the
that.
second, very practical, right? Interviewing can be very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But the way that I calm myself and get myself in this confident, just mindset is the following things. And I'm standing so that you guys can see this. One, I wear a blazer, so that's a must. Then I like to
Power blazer. Okay. Good
power
tip.
blazer.
Good tip.
And
I like
this
it.
thing's black, but whatever.
You can't see much, exactly.
And and you want to play your favorite song because your favorite song or your calming song is going to get you hype, excited, pumped. It's going to make you happy and that joy, right? And curiosity to take on the case interview and the behavioral. And dancing, it's proven scientifically that it reduces kind of like that cortisol level.
I
And
love
then
that.
You're ready to go. And typically for
I always
me,
used to do that. I sing myself a song before tests and exams.
Really?
Yeah, always.
Would you like to do that right now in front of everybody, Marie?
And I remember already doing that in high school. I just don't know. So I always would hum to myself "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," and I don't even know the lyrics. I have no idea why I like that song. but it
That's
became
so
a thing.
interesting.
that's awesome.
I've known you
So
for
I can
20 years.
attest it
Marie.
works.
That's
Letty.
amazing. I love it. But I love the pump up song idea. I think that's right. Anything you can do, some people do the power pose. I think music is a great way, and you're right, scientifically shown to do that. But we often tell that to candidates, which is the fact that you're interviewing with us, for example, you've already won the race. It is so
And
impressive.
that's much harder, right? The selection from application to interview, the cut is actually bigger than from interview to offer. So while
right.
it might not feel that way, the biggest hurdle is actually getting to the interview.
That's right. That's right. Well, wait, Letty, we can't let you go without asking, what is your pump up song?
It is Dakiti by Bad Bunny, which
Okay.
I live in Miami.
Maybe you want to
so
sing it. No.
Yeah.
It's in
All right,
Spanish.
that's homework for everybody. We can all decide whether we're adopting Letty's pump up song or not. But that's amazing. Letty, it has been,
They've been
we'll
amazing,
say,
yes.
a joy. And I love that we have joy in what we get to do. We are the luckiest people in the world. So thank you for sharing your joy with us and with
And
all
your
of our guests.
curiosity of finding out things and changing things and exploring and learning and
And we'll have you back. We'll have you
Being
back
awesome.
after you've conquered Boston and find out what new adventures and what curiosity you have tackled there as well, besides hunting for a winter coat. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you guys all for having me.
Thank
Blair,
you.
Marie,
Thanks for
it's
joining
been
us.
so much fun to spend the past 45 minutes chatting with you all. So thank you.
Amazing.
thank you.
All right.
And stay
Thanks
tuned for our
joining,
next
friends.
one
See
in
you on the next
June.
episode.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
In June. Okay.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.